farming is the most maddening thing you can do and also the most rewarding thing you can do. You can try and force something onto a piece of land, but ultimately the land is going to tell you what it wants to do.
Do you think you could get what was the type of pump we're talking about, ram pump going? I know you need a lot of water up high, but do you think you could get a cycle going?
You have to have a certain fall because you pump about 5% or whatever, right? So you flush 95% down.
Yeah.
So you go to the bottom of this dam and you'd have to run 30 metres or so laterally and then have a bunyip pump's actually better than a ram pump. It's an Australian version of the ram pump.
Okay.
But the setup for that versus the setup for a solar pump, the solar pump makes more sense for us because I don't have to go and clear. I don't have to have that runoff.
Yeah.
The solar pump is just as reliable because it's just solar panels, no charge controller, ramps up, ramps down,
no fuel.
to the sun, no fuel. It's a pretty solid state device. So
and that's what you're going for.
Yeah, but I mean, a bunyip pump would actually, you lose a lot of your water. So you know how they work, right? Ram pumps.
Yeah, they basically allow like at least 80% of the water to flush out, don't they?
Yeah. So you're collecting a small amount, but you're using no
energy.
You are using energy, but you're not putting it into the system.
No power.
Yeah, and you can push 100 meters up. It's incredible. But you're losing 80% of your water or more.
I think it probably only works with where you've got a river, but the only reason I mentioned it is because you have so much water in this dam. That's huge. How deep is that?
I don't know. It's huge at a couple of acres, but let's say we ran that down, then what? We'd flush 80% of it down the hill. Whereas if I put a solar pump in, the solar pump was $1,200.
Yeah.
The ram pumps you're gonna spend. You can build one of your own, but I'd just buy one. You're going to spend that much anyway.
So really, they're only suited for people that have rivers and things like that, flowing rivers, and even then.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think
it's interesting because we looked at a property for John and Jess. And they've actually made an offer on it, and it had a well. We couldn't figure out where the water was coming from, but there was infrastructure, really old infrastructure. Yeah. Like, where's this? And we ended up down in the bottom of this seasonal creek, like here, and there's a well. There's like a little tin shack locked up, and you could see there was a pump in there, and then you realise there's this little well that's like 1 foot by 1 foot, and it's wet inside. So the creek is seasonal, but they've dug along the edge of the creek, and there's just a well, and it's just, they don't have this, they don't have any permanent water on the property, and suddenly you realise there is permanent water, but it's just, and it's not a deep well at all, and it's just that big, and it's literally water just gently bubbling up, and they've just gone... in a dry creek bed. Yeah. Totally dry creek bed. So fascinating.
The other thing is we're using about 20,000 litres a day at 60 metres head, about 400 metres laterally. So to get 20,000 litres a day with a ram pump, you'd be wasting, 120,000 litres a day?
100,000! Yeah. Yeah. I thought maybe this was spring-fed and overflowing, because it's a lot of water.
It is, but the overflow rate, I've had a look at these compared to some of the ram pumps and bunyip pumps, we'd be losing too much.
Yeah. And do you, so we agreed the ram pump's not a good idea. Did you do anything to clean this up? Because all these lilies around the edges, it looks to me like it's prettier and cleaner than it was when I came here last. Are you doing... Or is this just coming back to life?
No, it's natural. So for some reason, those who understand water and dam quality tell me that those lilies are a sign of they're fragile, so they're a sign of good water quality.
Yeah, very good water quality.
But that's because of the constant inflow outflow. It's the spring fed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're just
there's clean water. There's fresh water coming in.
Yeah. You see that movement now. It all moves down towards that way constantly because it all overflows that way.
So where it overflows, is it like a little trickle, or is it?
It's not a flood. It's not a trickle, but it's constant. Whether it rains or whether it's dry, it's
always running. So it's spring.
It'll run today the same rate as in torrential downpours, exactly the same.
But it's a few inches, and it's a.
That is probably the best part of the whole property.
If we can get the water out of it, which you're trying,
you will.
I'll get there eventually.
You know that you will. It's just a question of when.
So how tall? What head of water is it? 60 meters or 30?
It's probably 50, but I'm giving it 60 as with some friction losses.
Okay, great.
Have you ever done the sounding? Where you just get a weight and you measure out the rope? Just let it go?
The depth.
Yep.
Yeah, one of the co-owners did, but he never gave me the readings. Steep.
That's really cool. You just go out there on a
kayak or
anything, and you just literally have a long piece of twine with a weight, and you let it go.
Yes,
just
great.
use it.
Yeah, great.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to introduce you to Matt Wong, who's joined us, and we will focus more on Matt. We've been through that whole journey in the car up here, and we can talk about what you guys are doing together on the way back. But what's really interesting to talk about right now is I'm interested in the journey that people go through from wherever they are in the city life, some version of city life, non-farming, whether it's rural, coastal, rural, whatever, to, well, here you are in your work clothes, you've taken a break from fixing, a water problem, and you are a mud on the boots, practicing farmer, yet you're trained as a lawyer. You also have a very popular podcast, a vlog. What do you call a vlog?
Podcast is fine.
Podcast called Discernible.
Yep.
You are well known and well respected by a lot of people as a provocative thinker, somebody who asks questions and isn't scared of the answers. And I've been interviewed by you, and I remember from that you listen, you stop, you ask, you listen. So in that spirit, let me try and guide you a little bit, but the main thing that I'd like to know from you is wherever you want to start on the journey, how you went, where your life started out, and what the transition was to this, what those milestones or triggers were. I know COVID was one of the things, but that was almost more like an opportunity. You know, it wasn't necessarily the thing that that thought, that want was already in you when COVID happened and you said, you know what, I could do a farm. So where did you begin, and how did you come to fall in love with this or want to do this?
I don't know if I love it or hate it.
Right. Well, I think that's a conversation we had right there. So let's keep that one in mind. Come back to it. But
yesterday I loved it. Today, because the water was working yesterday.
Right.
Today it's not. No, but
take me back.
Well, farming is the most maddening thing you can do, and also the most rewarding thing you can do. I remember yesterday. There's water behind us.
Yep, a lot of water.
Right,
I'll get some drone shots of that later.
Which is great. So you don't think much about water because it's right there. But when you're standing, it was 40 up here yesterday, 40 degrees, 104 for the US watches. When you're standing in the middle of a dry paddock, just completely parched, cows are thirsty, everything's just dry, and you open a valve and out comes flowing water because my water system was working yesterday.
Yeah.
It was, I don't do this very often. I was yelling in the paddock, enjoy, screaming enjoy.
The Epiphany.
Yes.
The day after the 6th.
Because not only do you have water flowing out in a desert, it represents life. Like, that's going to feed the grass to make it green. It's going to keep me alive, the animals alive. I can't believe it was almost a spiritual experience having this water gushing 100%. Out in the middle of a dry paddock. So you have these kinds of moments of amazing things. Same when some animals are born, or there's certain things on the farm that you go, oh, it's all worth it. So it reminds me of having children, which can be frustrating and maddening too.
Yes, but it's the best thing.
Yeah, last night they all were sleeping in the lounge because it was so hot where the aircon is. And, I walked past them lying on the couch snoring, and I thought, oh, it's all worth it.
Yes. So how does, take me back to where, that's your life now, and you've pretty much summarized it by saying it's not easy, but I love it. There are moments of just wonder. And we've talked about this a couple of times where you're like, because you're very open with where you're at the time. It's one of the things I really like is you just go, well, this is how I'm feeling today. Like, I'm not going to pretend, everything's good. I'm not feeling great about it today because the water's bothering me. And then tomorrow the water's good. I feel great. But where did you come from? Tell me about before farming. What your life looked like.
It's typical of everyone watching. Desk bound. Office bound.
As a lawyer?
I had a law firm, but I worked in all sorts of things like medicine and business and so on. But just everyone has a desk job. We push paper around, or we type on a screen. Yeah. And click a mouse. And I was the same. And then we have to go and exercise deliberately to try and offset our bad lifestyles. So just like exercise, I don't know if love's the right word, but I think this is the right sort of life. Yesterday was 14 hours physically outside. You go to the gym and you work hard for 45 minutes?
Yeah, it's nothing.
I was pushing hard for periods of about 2 hours at a time across about 5 times yesterday. So I probably did maybe 8 to 10 hours of max effort, whole body, lifting trees over, cutting trees and lifting them over fences. And so that kind of thing is very, very hard and it sucks. But it's also like the gym.
It's
very, very rewarding.
I often say you always know when you shake the hand of a farmer. Because you think, well, bodybuilders don't have a grip like that.
Well, I can barely shake your hand now. All my forearms are all injured from yesterday.
Oh, but that's recovery time. You know what I mean? When you shake the hand of a farmer, like you meet some farmer who's like 80 years old. G'day, John. And then he just goes, and you go, wow. Because his muscle gets worked day in, day out.
But that's what I mean, the going from that lifestyle, as most people watching would have, where you have to deliberately kind of exercise, training for a lifestyle like a bricklayer or like a farmer or whatever is frustrating and hard, but it's very fulfilling and more natural and worth it. And so
how did that happen for you?
How did we start the farm?
How do you go from I'm working medicine and law and then...
Well, you sign up you sign up to Cultured Estates.
You sign up to Cultured Estates. That unfortunately didn't exist. And you did say to me, that you wish something like Cultured Estates had existed because it's all about just trying to help people bring some structure to the process. But you're working in an office or whatever. How do you... I know, for example, you told me that this farm... you were doing your Discernible podcast, COVID had happened, and you had this long podcast, and part of the conversation was, you know what, if there was a bunch of people that wanted to put in some money, I could put that together and we could buy a farm together. You're a lawyer, you know how to do this sort of stuff. And then the next morning you woke up thinking nothing of it and there was money in the bank and you were like, oh, but how do you get to that point? What was that the point where you went, oh my God, I'm going to go and live on a farm? Or was it already
I was never supposed
bubbling?
to be. I was never supposed to be the farmer.
Right, that's really interesting, right?
No.
Because that's opposite. We're like sort of looking over the fence and he's like, how did I end up on the other side of the fence? Yeah, so go on. So
I was not meant to be the farmer. We looked into...
Oh, you mean you weren't going to be the farmer?
No, we're going to hire a farmer, but we looked at other people who tried to do a similar thing, community-owned farms. Like Romey is owning this farm with me as well, and there's a number of families that do. And we were going to hire a farmer, and they just ran into so many problems doing that that I said to my wife, hey... And I had little kids at the time, 3 and 5, and said, maybe we have to do this. Would you be willing? And there'd be big plus sides, like this is my home, this is ridiculous. But I don't spend a lot of time appreciating my home. It's mostly just work. Right now I'm thinking about I've got to get rid of this bracken and whatever.
But that's every man's life, right? We're in your city as well. You work, you buy a beautiful house, a beautiful apartment, what you think is a beautiful house, a beautiful apartment. You spend most of your time out figuring out ways to pay for it. So what you're saying is that you were very pragmatic in your approach. That's interesting because what you're saying is you saw a problem, COVID, lack of food, independence and control, quality of food, etc. So you weren't reading books on
how to farm,
regenerative farming and stuff like that before that day.
Oh, I mean, a lot of podcasting. So, I'm aware of Joel Salatin and all the rest of the other regens and the Permies and that kind of crowd. So I was aware of it, but I didn't know that I would be the one doing it. Yeah, trying to do it.
That's really interesting. I think that's fascinating because Joel Salatin, you just mentioned, Polyface Farms in Roanoke in Virginia, who is sort of, in one of the founders of the whole regenerative mobbing model of cattle and chickens. He, in a strange way, has a similar story. He grew up on a farm. His family had set up a farm in South America somewhere. It was really successful. There was a regime overthrow as happens in South America, as we're well aware at the moment with Venezuela. And they lost everything. They came back to America. They bought this farm that he described as a farm that had been raped for 99 years. Just, he said, and they showed pictures. So I remember seeing a picture where he described it. They said they couldn't get those steel star posts into the ground. The clay was so hard. So they had to get old tyres, pour cement in them, and then put the stake in there. And then tie wire to that to make the fencing. The ground was that hard, and now it's arguably the most productive, regenerative farm of its type in the world. His topsoil goes up every year, heavily documented. But his story was, he studied as a journalist. So you studied law, but you do journalism as well. He studied as a journalist. He worked as a journalist, and his dad said to him, "I'm going to sell the farm." And he said, "No, I really want to be a farmer." And his dad said, "Are you sure? Because it's brutal." And he said, "Yes." And he cried when he talked about this in the documentary. He said, his father said, "I'll never mention selling this farm again," and he never did till the day he died. So he chose into it and had a background knowing how difficult it was. You fell into it not having any idea how difficult it was, and yet you're making a pretty red hot go of it. Why do you think you're able to do that?
I think most men would identify with the instinct to try something new, to tackle a problem, to have a challenge worthy of you, to prove yourself. Maybe there's an element of that. We're yet to see whether it works out. On the farm, what are we, 3 years in now? And I've only met Ramona a year ago or so, and he's really helped get a lot of the stuff off the ground on the veggie side. I'm much better with animals and machines and infrastructure. But
that's part of the learning curve, right? You don't know until you find out.
Yes, but even now, I don't like dealing with vegetables and fruit and water and sprinklers and harvesting, and I don't care how many good nectarines come off. I'm just never going to be passionate about that part of farming.
Like Ram is.
Yeah, I guess that's the whole green thumb thing people talk about. But yeah, so I don't know. I have a go. This is what annoys me about farmers. Right? I've met a lot now. It's all about community. If you're it's not going to work well for you as a farmer, especially on this 150 acres. It's not a hobby farm. It's reasonable this close to Melbourne.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't just have your little 4 acres and kind of do your own thing. You need to borrow tractors, and you need to get that excavator over here, and stuff happens. And I've noticed that a lot of the medium farmers who have 20, 30, 40, 50 acres can be real. They'll say stupid stuff to you. You're like, "Oh, you need to do an apprenticeship first," and like a pseudo apprenticeship. Don't try too hard. And then when you meet the big farmers like Joel Salatin, they are really big-hearted farmers, and they say things like, "No, have a go. You can do it.
Yeah.
And when you fail, we'll come around and help you." And so the real farmers, they have a real can-do attitude, and they champion you. The smaller farmers, they must have farm envy or something, because they try and shut you down.
So tell me then about your experience. So the story, if I get it correctly, just to summarize for people listening and don't know, you're working as you have a podcast, you have some other legal businesses and other businesses that you're in. I know that you had a business that you sold, things like that. So you're a successful guy. You suddenly find yourself, actually, I think I'm going to have to do this. You're seeing it as another business thing that you're doing, another business opportunity. You suddenly realize you're going to be doing this. Tell us about that transition, and try and focus in. Can you focus in on some of the key revelations that you've had? Not the practical, like on Mondays we have to till the soil and always till left, not right, but the sort of journey markers that you've had. Like, for example, you say sometimes you question your sanity, right? So can you talk about your journey from day one? Like, okay, you arrive on the farm, you buy it. How did you find the farm?
We searched around, and we had a group of families first, so we knew what we were looking for. And then we searched around for a farm of size to suit that family, that collection of families. That's how we chose it. And we had, things we needed like aspect and water and so on, fertility and clean soil. But I wish we bought more.
More land.
Much more.
And how
Much
did
more.
you prioritise those things like aspect, etc.? Why was that important to you?
Oh, I mean, that's the basic stuff that I thought you didn't want to know, like north facing on a slight slope
Oh,
to
okay.
catch
You're not
the
talking
sun.
about cosmetic aspect. You're talking
No,
about...
I don't care about the cosmetics. No.
Okay. Yep. Go on.
So I wish we bought more. I think most farmers will say that if they had more land, they'd be able to do more. And there's a scaling, there's economies of scale. We're of a size, a few hundred acres, where we have almost every machine, a lot of machines. And
that could be doing 5 times as much work.
Easily,
That's 1,000
interesting
acres
point.
you could affect with the machinery you've got.
Absolutely.
You could have 1,000 acres.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
could-
Absolutely.
You were just saying that on 1,000
So
acres.
if the machinery and the allowance for infrastructure here, you could, instead of having 150 acres, you could manage 1,000 acres effectively with what's here. It's kind of like the vineyards in the peninsula. The boutique vineyard of 5 to 10 acres
Is in many ways
demands as much
as much
labour and focus and resource as 100 acres. It's
and many people like Jean-Martin Fortier and people like that talk about you're either small and super intensive or you need to scale. That bit in between,
it's in between.
that's the really risky bit, because you're neither lean and mean nor big and lumbering. And Joel Salatin is a great example. He talked a lot for many decades about 40 to 60 acres. You can make a living on 40 to 60 acres, but now he's got thousands.
Yes.
And now he's really doing well. And so, yes, you can scale up, and I think 150, 200 acres is a really good starting point. But it's an interesting point. Maybe one of the things that people need to consider when they look at a property is there some land around that I will be able to expand to, even if it's not right next door, even if I have to get my tools, 5 minutes down the road. But will I be able to grow with this over time? Do I want to?
No, you reckon the bigger unlock is network and partnership. So the reason why I say if I could have my time again and cultured estates existed back then, I would just sign up into that, is because if you could have one 200 horsepower tractor for $100,000, and
share
I
it
could
between a dozen,
cultured estates head office might own it, and I can hire it out for $500 a day, 3 days a year, whatever. Instead of buying the thing. The network effect of that, the network effect of knowledge. Hey, right now my petrol pump's not working. Sure, I've got ChatGPT and I've got Google and I've got YouTube and I'm working through all of that. But someone who's had endless problems with petrol pumps will be able to say to me, "Oh, trust me."
I know what that is.
bang.
Let me check one thing. Is the widget blue? That's your problem.
Solved.
Yeah. I
So
agree,
that network
100%,
effect, I think, is gold, and I think that's what's missing from a lot of farming. And I don't know how to create it, because most people in our Western societies, we have our own. Everyone has a mower, everyone has a whippersnipper on a suburban street, and it's like you barely use the thing.
Yeah.
And there's 30
Just
houses on
share
the
it
street,
between the 30 houses.
but you can't, because culturally we're not set up to do that.
In Elwood, we share the high pressure hose, the whippersnipper, the mower.
Across how many people?
A few houses.
Oh, that's
Wow. So
fantastic.
you're
And
creating.
that's been my thing at Bonio, and I won't talk too much here, but is that the network of volunteers and the connections we made with other farms was immense and so helpful, because we had, we've got plenty of cow manure for your compost.
Take it.
Yes, you can borrow this and you can borrow that. We don't need the cedar. We borrowed the cedar from the golf course. It's a $20,000 cedar.
How does that compare to
do your own
having
cover
a
crop.
massive farm of your own then?
Well, because if you have look, having a massive farm of your own, that's not the issue. It's the network and the sharing, the share arrangements.
So it's even more valuable.
That's a $20,000 cedar. We did 2.5 acres worth of cover crop. It took us 2 hours.
Yeah, so what do you do with the other 364 days?
That's it.
No way.
Ship it off to somebody else. Yeah.
The golf course use it quite a lot, but you can imagine putting that out to a dozen farms.
Yes.
Hey, every spring and autumn, you can borrow this for a couple of days. It's going to cost you $500-600 a day.
Yeah.
You get all your sowing done perfectly, mind you. The birds don't get
Precision
a look in.
machines.
It's incredible. I look back at all the sunflowers that have gone in. It's immaculate. It's Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
So that's a $20,000 machine that can be used on a dozen to 20 farms.
And as you say, on a golf course.
Yeah, and the golf course use it because it's constantly. But, I mean, what I'm saying is one person only needs to own that in your network of 10 farms, and that's what is attractive about cultured estates. It's the network effect, which therefore you don't need to be the isolated, I'm just going to, push through myself. You can go and talk to the neighbour about borrowing the tractor. You can go and talk to someone else about, you've got a spare pump. About we borrow the pump for a week. It's
test it out.
And get us out of trouble
in that network need to be, so we're just broadly philosophizing here, not sort of selling a product, but the people in that network need to have some skills. So as people come into that network, like you've come in as a farmer, somebody else is coming in tomorrow, right? You're building up your skills as you go. The people coming in, they can't come in with nothing. They can't be saying, can you tell me, do I open the gate left or right? You don't have time to share that sort of information. So there needs to be a foundation, a preparation. And one of the things that I notice about farming as an industry is if you want to be a lawyer, a doctor, an accountant, a boot maker, key cutter, anything, right? Tree lopper, whatever, there is always a pathway that's well trodden, certifications. If you get, if you want to be a chef, you go and work in the kitchen for a while, then you get this certification, then you learn not to cut your fingers off, then you learn even if it's not the best way, it's a way. But with farming, it's like I guess I'll have to do this. Where do I start?
There's no masters in agriculture that offers that kind of experience.
Not this kind of farming. And if you want to learn, if you go and contact the universities, they'll say, we've got a degree in equine studies, or we've got, you can do 3 years to learn about cropping corn in the, in desert areas. They're not teaching you how to do regenerative farming. So
to be fair, I do have a boss. And every day it's the sun. I'm racing the sun every day, and mainly the sun. And if it's not the sun, it's something else, like the impending rain in 4 days from now. So I am very much slave to something, but it's not a human with an attitude or an issue. It's the earth. It's the rhythms. It's the seasons. That's what I serve.
So this area is fairly elevated. How high up off? Sea level
it feels it, but it's not. It's only, I think we're under 1,000 feet in elevation.
Okay, but it's not sea level, so 1,000 feet elevation.
Fault line tidal wave.
Yeah.
All the
just enough to survive the second flood.
Watching that happening at the moment.
So winter gets down below zero.
Yep.
So you've got frost and
only a few frosts a year, but yes.
Yep. Got a bit of frost, and then in summer it probably gets up. And yesterday it was
but it's always 3 or 4 degrees cooler than just down the hill in Melbourne. Yeah.
So yesterday was almost 40 in Melbourne. So here around 35.
Yeah, but strangely yesterday we hit 40. So it's that's odd. Usually we're 3 or 4 degrees.
That's hot
cooler.
Air. That's hot air as opposed to
44 in Melbourne. Yeah. So
was it? Was it really? Okay, 44 yesterday in Melbourne.
Hottest in 6 years apparently.
Okay. Well, let's get all the crops in the ground before Armageddon, because 44 degrees. But we had that a few times when we were kids. Every year we would have
I remember
a few days that were
46.5 in Sydney.
Yeah. So you get very hot, very cold. That's an interesting point. How does that affect your business plan? So you're raising animals or growing crops. How much do you take into account weather when it comes to planning?
Well, weather is everything. It allows you to do things or not do things. I mean, just machinery in the paddocks cannot happen when it's wet.
Right, just too muddy. We've been through that. Mucking about in the mud.
And sometimes you'll come ready to do something and it will be hailing all day and you're standing there with your farm staff and there's nothing you can do.
There's just nothing you can do.
Sit on your hands.
Do you think one way that you can address productivity downturns like that is to diversify? So, for example, if you had polytunnels, it would be everybody into the polytunnels. We're going to do some work there. Because you're working up towards that. You're building up an orchard, you're building up market gardens, you'll probably have polytunnels at some point. Yeah. Do you think that as you diversify, that will become less of an issue?
What I would like to see is a network effect where I'm already creating one. So I do a lot of excavation work with an excavation business that I started. I also do a lot of arborist work with another company that I go and do, chop down trees and all that kind of stuff. So I'm already doing a network effect where I'm not busy here, I'll go there. But if you could even ramp that up, like in the Cultured Estates model, I have no, I'm not an owner of Cultured Estates. Sounds like I am, and I'm trying to sell it.
Yeah, this is not about business. This is the Farm Change podcast, but we're mentioning Cultured Estates because we've talked about that before.
Yeah, I like it because the idea would be if that community of say 10 farms, 12 farms, 3 farms, whatever it is, I should be able to move human labor across the farms as well. I should be able to say, hey, I need to borrow some of your farm staff for 3 days because we're doing hay or something intense. And I should be able to say... Or
literally put out a message to the network, it's hailing where I am. Does anybody need some staff? Yes, send Jimmy down to me.
Exactly. Yeah. And we'll all go down to the farm in Mornington and we'll all package up strawberries in the warehouse or whatever they're doing.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
And then we'll have a barter system where, we're going to put in 30 hours there. They're going to put in 30 hours here. Whatever. You can work all that out. That's the franchise's problem to work all that out, systems. But I love that idea of diversifying that way. Because, again, if I build a polytunnel... It's just me again with a giant polytunnel. I'm trying to get away from
just me.
Just me, yeah.
It sounds like that's. I'm hearing that from you more and more. We talk every few months, and it sounds like that's where you're evolving. What you're evolving towards is how can I build up more resilience through networks. From what keeping in mind that this podcast primarily is just to share people's journeys so that people who are somewhere along their journey can hopefully find people that they relate to. Somebody might be out there, might be a lawyer or in a similar sort of thing and say, I'd never thought of doing a podcast. I'd never thought of doing a group ownership model or, if Matt can do it, I can do it.
Anyone can do it.
So what would you say are the 3 big lessons you've learned that you would share if you met someone like you 10 years ago who sort of had it on their heart to do some of this? What 3 things would you say to them? Would you give them as pieces of advice?
So, I'll just go with 1. I don't know how to get a list of 3. One big thing is I'm tired of people thinking and being told that they can't do this. And it's often coming from people who have been doing it for multi-generations and they say, we've been doing this forever, we know the way to do it.
Yep.
I think the best farmers nowadays, especially in our technological age, would be people like me who have come out of working at Tesla or having my own podcast or whatever, or working in medicine, or you working in IT and business and the apps creation and stuff that you do. We obviously have some level of intelligence. Otherwise, how do we create this app business and all this other stuff? If we apply that ingenuity to farming, things go really well. I deal with a lot of older, multi-generational farms, especially out east in Gippsland of Eastern Victoria, lower socioeconomic status, low education levels. And they're good at what they do in a way because they've been doing it forever, and that's how my daddy and his daddy did it. But they're the ones that don't have the ability, in my opinion, to adapt and change and do farming in a new and better way. And yet they're the ones telling the lawyer who might be listening, oh, no, you couldn't do this. I actually think it's the reverse. So I think my one piece of advice would be if you are that lawyer sitting there thinking, can I become a farmer? Absolutely you can. And there may be parts that you're not good at, you'll have to outsource or whatever. But overall, the brain of a lawyer, of a doctor, of an accounts manager at Coca-Cola, of these people who have skills soft skills in the soft world, if I can call it the soft world, whereas farming is, I injured myself this morning, it's a hard world. I think those soft skills, that brain, that adaptability, that autodidact, so the ability to self-teach, is absolutely prime asset to use in farming, especially when you've got Claude and Grok and ChatGPT and image recognition and YouTube and courses and all of that. You can become a better farmer than these multi-generational people, and you can do it in a few years.
So it sounds like what you're identifying is that people who grow up on established small and medium-sized farms may, in some instances, only know what their parents knew, but people coming into it from the outside, especially if they have a bit of an education and some work experience and some life skills, in many ways they don't have those fundamental farm skills, but you can learn those pretty quickly, and then you get to bring your wisdom, your perspective, and a new viewpoint. And people are always resisting in farming. I think, we've always done it that way, and that's good, but sometimes you need to test it. And yes, many of the new things that we come up with don't work, but once in a while one of them will, and that will change every farm, because when every farm sees, oh wow, multi-species cropping is working really well, what do you know? It's spreading across the globe from one person saying, literally when people start talking about that, they talked about how all their neighbours laughed at them, called them Joel Salatin says he was called the lunatic farmer. That's why his podcast's called the lunatic farmer. And they're like, this guy's nuts, and now everybody's doing it.
That's right. Real Dirt on Farmer John is a great example of that.
Real Dirt on Farmer John. Is that a...
It's another film, doco.
About Real Dirt on Farmer John.
Multi-generational farm.
We need to get some sponsorships happening here for Polyface.
That's
and
right.
Real Dirt.
But he had the same experience, and it went to the wall and didn't have any idea what he was doing. But like the autodidact, it's like you're training yourself by putting yourself in the center of a challenge, a problem, a different context.
Yeah.
Trusting that you have the brain capacity to work it out, and it's in the working it out that the farm works you out, and it becomes
it reveals itself.
Absolutely.
There's a very interesting. Let me just make sure this is still Happy Chappies. Yes, it is. There's a very interesting entrepreneur. I'm trying to remember his name. He's a big guy and he's got a beard, and he's a famous businessman and sort of fitness and motivational guy. What's his name?
He's a farmer.
No. He's a podcaster, sort of a social media celebrity. He's got a big black beard. Anyway, he's I'll figure out his name, put it in the notes, but he talks about, he's a very successful entrepreneur, and he talks about his entrepreneurial journey for the first sort of 10 years of his life, 20 years of his life, where he, crash and burn, crash and burn, crash and burn, crash and burn, until he said he figured something out, and that's when he started to have success. And the way he describes it is, what most people's entrepreneurial journey is, and he says it's very predictable, is they see what somebody else is doing, and they say, that looks like they're pretty successful. That guy's a travel vlogger, or, he started a farm or whatever, right? And that looks pretty successful. And so they decide that looks better than my life, and they try to pursue this. And what they have there is they're an ignorant entrepreneur. They don't know the reality of it. What happens next is they get all excited, and then what happens next is they start to realize, wow, this is harder than I thought. There's more work involved. I didn't realize it was going to cost so much. Like you say, oh, wow, it hailed, and so I couldn't work today, but that's ruined all my plans. And what most people do is they just keep going down that until they fail, and then they look at something else. They say, you know what, that guy with the ski resort in Austria, he's got the life, and they go and do that. And they go through that same super excitement, and they realise, wow, I'm always working holidays, and the hours are long, and equipment's always breaking down, and people are difficult, and this high-end ski resorts, the people are arrogant, and they're rude to me, and, and they get to that point, and what he theorizes is that when you succeed is that you accept that that's going to happen. You're going to have that first flush, then you're going to have reality sink in, and you're at that point where you're now an ignorant new person. From ignorant new person to, let's say, aware that you don't know anything anymore. And if you then continue and persist with it, you then become more and more of an informed, advocate for this lifestyle. So and eventually you get success.
Dunning-Kruger effect, the curve.
The Dunning-Kruger effect. Yeah. Okay, so do you want to describe that?
Just what you described. Yeah.
So from a farming perspective,
I'm at the end, in the Dunning-Kruger effect, after the initial flush, the excitement and the initial success, then you go through something called the Valley of Despair.
Valley of Despair, that's what it is.
And then you slowly grow after that. So I don't know, but so far it feels like I'm on the end of the Valley of Despair. I'm on the back end of it.
So
I would say from
slipping back again.
Grinding the gears on the combine. I would say that's what I would observe, because I've had a number of startups over many decades in different countries. And so I've been through that journey many times. And I've had people that I really respect who are quite successful entrepreneur business people said to me, that idea won't work, Jerome. It's really cool, but it won't work. No, it will. And then, 2 years later, you're like, I've just wasted 2 years of my life. But you haven't. You learn. I would say, looking at you, that is 100% right. You're coming out of the valley of despair. So maybe let's close with you describing what the valley of despair looked like for you. You realised that you were going to be on this farm, and so what happened?
When your initial plans fail,
right?
When you're
what were those for you?
Oh, for us, so selling food and having projections and surveys and all that kind of stuff, and then realising we're not primarily going to be a pumpkin farm. Was
that the plan?
Well, we were going to produce a lot more veggies and a lot more fruit.
We're going to corner the pumpkin market.
We had someone who lost. You had someone who lost 40 grand of pumpkin one night to deer. Like you make good money on pumpkin.
He said if you do it well, he said off the back of a conversation on Saturday, there's a plug for Plenty Valley Organics and Romey's Patch. They both said if you do it well, you can pick up about 20 tonnes of pumpkin off a single acre.
Whoa.
If you do it well.
Yeah.
If you don't do it well, you're still guaranteed 10 tonne. If you just keep the weeds off it and it's irrigated, that's it. You don't need to do anything. So my plan to get in pumpkin, zucchini and the basic brassicas, bit of kale here as a start of just to see how much we can do, apply a plan as we go and go, okay, we've got a metric now.
Yeah.
The soil's pretty good. If we rotate across 2 acres or an acre and a half, these 4 different crops, those crops are going to turn into a cash crop, and we don't have to diversify. We can still get some rows of strawberries and some berries and some nice things. Our orchard kicks along for 5 years, but we've got a proving, if you like, so that we can say, okay, look, we pulled $15,000 off that in this 6 to 9 month season. Let's use JM's plan, his app from and work out a plan and a yield and a return and set an expectation.
But we were talking about. Did you say it's the Dunn's? What's the name of that chart?
Dunning-Kruger.
The Dunning-Kruger effect. Where you go through the high, where you're ignorant, and then you go through the low in the valley of despair.
Yeah, we're adapting it a little bit.
What was your valley of despair? What was it? How did it actually happen? Looking back.
Well, it's just an acknowledgement that my plans for the place are not happening. So when I started farming, the thing that I noticed is that there's a level of humility required, because when it rains in the suburbs, it rains.
Yeah.
That's all that happens.
Yeah.
Maybe your hair gets wet.
Yeah.
When it rains up here, things go to pot. Roads close, can't get up your driveway, can't get the quad down the hill. All sorts of stuff happens. And so you get humbled by rain.
Yeah.
I noticed also that I primarily don't grow anything. When people say, I grew 50 acres of corn, no, the hell you didn't. You didn't grow 50 acres of corn.
The pastures grew.
The pastures grew it. If you're religious, God grew that crop, not you. Yeah. If you're into Mother Nature grew the crop, and the cows. I'm not out there making the cows grow.
What you did was just not
facilitate.
Help and not hurt.
Yeah, I made fencing. I made sure they had access to water. I rotated the paddocks, and then the cows grew.
But where's that valley of despair for you? Can you look back and say, right around this point, you started out with a plan.
No, but this is my point, right? So I had that humility to start with. It's not me growing the crops, right? I just have to facilitate. The humility I lacked was thinking that I could go to a piece of land or a farm project and implement my will onto it. What I didn't realize was you can try and force something onto a piece of land, but ultimately the land is going to tell you what it wants to do. Yes, we are regenerating it. Yes, we can improve the topsoil like Joel Salatin did and Gabe Brown and all the rest of them. Yeah. But ultimately, that land is always going to bend towards something more than other land across the country might bend another way.
It has a personality of its own.
Yes.
Yeah, it has its own wants and needs.
So I'm trying to figure out what can I encourage and bend this land to do? Yes. But how can I flow and work with the land? Because if I can figure out what it naturally wants to grow, naturally wants to do with its water, naturally wants to dry out and flood and try and work with it, then I'm going to be a lot less frustrated.
So the valley of despair for you and the, entrepreneurial farmer journey was the point at which you came to realize that you were going to have to let the plan reveal itself rather than you enforcing on it. So you went in with a battle plan like all the generals, military generals say, have a plan and just be aware that it'll all go up in smoke on day one, but you still have to have a plan. Yes. So that was the point.
But every Silicon Valley unicorn has this kind of a story. Canva, all the rest of them, that's not Silicon Valley, but all these big unicorns, they all say, we set out to do X and we did it. And there was this one little module in our dashboard that tracked whatever customer click through. Yeah. And then all of a sudden now they're Salesforce because all the people cared about was this one little module they had of 100 modules, and they realized, the market, that's their farm. The market just wants to do this. Yeah.
So maybe the market wants pumpkins. Maybe it's tours. Who knows?
This farm is my market. If this farm wants me to do something, I just should try and... So the valley of despair was not being able to force it to my will. And now I'm coming out trying to allow it to also not just permanently guide me, but I'm listening to it more.
Isn't that interesting? Because I think it's a life lesson. Romana and I have known each other since we were kids, 15, 16, but we haven't seen each other for years, and we reconnected through you. We could not be more different people, and yet we kind of went, like in our journeys, because you went off to India and the whole thing, and I went off to Europe. Neither one of us came from a really sort of, neither one of us was born on a farm. We're city kids, real inner city kids. And we both went like, I think all three of us could say that the less we resist the opportunities that are presenting themselves, hey, just come on down to this market garden and check it out, and you connect up with it all. The less we resist it and the more we learn to go with the flow. I had I like to do my morning prayers and get revelation, and I was doing this morning prayer, and I got this revelation that where I felt God say to me, when you are standing in the middle of the river, you'll know it, because there will just be flow, and all your skills will come together and be useful. And here I am, I'm doing vlogging and podcasting, which I had no intention to do, but I have a film degree. I'm creating educational materials. I studied Diploma of Vocational Education, and I remember thinking at the time, why aren't I just doing the Cert 4 that they've requested? Why have I got this bizarre idea to do the next level, which teaches you how to create, educational materials and training materials, and business and entrepreneurship, and thinking farming's got nothing to do with entrepreneurship. And yet, as we just shown, it's arguably the most entrepreneurial thing you can do, because it's one thing to build rockets to go to the moon with known, engineering factors. It's another thing altogether to go on a piece of land and say, rain can, rain for an hour can completely destroy our business plan. It's incredibly entrepreneurial. And perhaps that's something people don't realize, that this is an entrepreneurial journey. And the more you let go, and I say let go, let God, say whatever you want, but let go and stand in the middle of the river and stop trying to fight up the river.
Let go and let God.
Let go, let God. Have you heard that one?
Context.
Yeah, just let go, man.
For me, it's about fitting in with the context, recognizing the context, and then letting the context guide me. Yeah. And it's a lot more fluid, because I'm not.
Yeah, we're sounding like an old bunch of hippies, and but it's true, right? Yeah. Like you get to a point. I think either you get to a point in your life where you accept that, or you just fight it.
Yeah.
I know people who fight it, and I feel like I don't think I'm a particularly hippie-ish person, but I just look at what's around me, and food systems, all that sort of stuff, and if you can't let go and say, well, something's wrong, there needs to be a better way, I can't figure it out, I'll just go with the flow.
Well, some things are worth fighting.
Some things are worth fighting for.
But you don't want to just be fighting nature in general.
Yeah,
No.
you don't want to be fighting the river.
That's the wrong. That's the wrong.
Yeah.
Fight.
It doesn't
The
give
fight
up.
doesn't
Yeah.
need to be taken
Yeah.
up there. The fight is up in here.
Yeah,
For me, it's all this. It's the pump.
yeah.
And what is that? So it's almost a metaphor for, okay, there's a challenge here. There's a little bit of an initiation. Maybe it's a stepping stone to something else. Maybe I realise something in the process in me. Maybe there is something from on high, whatever your belief system is, that comes to you in that moment that would not come if the pump was working and everything was fine.
Yes.
The discomfort
Yes.
sort of shapes
Yes,
us.
absolutely. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then get their character built.
Yeah.
And it's an old kind of, idiom that's it's that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But you're shaped into, and I said it before, the land finds its place for you.
Yes.
And so that if you can sit there, okay, it's hailing, I'm going to go and help someone fix their tractor hydraulics in the whatever.
And people,
You
there
start
are microsystems are like a big thing, right?
Yeah.
Like you can go from one paddock to another and it can be completely
Massively
different.
different.
Massive difference, facing a different way, different soils.
I would encourage anyone watching, though, that they're obviously interested in doing some kind of farming something. I would encourage them all to do it, especially the high thinking ones.
Yeah.
So the lawyers and the barristers and the doctors and the engineers and those who are wanting to leave the office and do this kind of thing, it's the most rewarding and probably really well suited to you. I wouldn't buy the lie that you have to be multi-generational.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're saying is that what you realised through your own experience and through other people. And I mean, Romana's got a master's degree from Melbourne University, is a Steiner teacher. A lot of people that we meet in farming, especially regenerative farming, turn out to be pretty clever, well-informed, educated people. And it sounds like what you've identified is that those people maybe disadvantage themselves by believing that farming is a skill, where actually farming is more like the task.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the skill is in being able to develop networks, relationships, and a breadth of knowledge to say, how should I farm on this piece of land? What's the task that I have? Like you said, we're going to start with pumpkins on this piece of land because I know what I'm doing. I want to cover the ground. I want to break the ground up. I want to get some nutrients going. You've got a plan. You're not stuck in a system where you say, well, my dad and my granddad always planted loose
so I
earth.
should be an accountant.
So
and
that's
stay.
what it's going to be. I should be an accountant.
I mean, since the Industrial Revolution, pre-Industrial Revolution, how many thousands of years have people been farming?
Yeah.
It's not that.
It's not that hard.
It's not that hard intellectually.
No.
What it is difficult, what is the challenge, and what's lacking from society and humanity generally is the will to apply and stay with something that is challenging, that is different, that you are in your comfort zone, because it's like the office is comfortable. The screen's comfortable. The coffee down the road's perfect.
Yes, somebody makes a coffee,
I'm never really at the whim of the weather. I don't have to suffer hail or failure of pumps or anything like that.
Yeah.
I can call a plumber.
Yes.
I can get someone else that's got that profession. On a farm, you realise that my capacity and my skill level as a farmer, it's problem solving, it's expansive, and it kind of has has to be. You do have to.
So
in
many ways, it's like the best of challenges, right? Because it tests you intellectually.
It does.
It tests you physically.
Very much.
And it tests you emotionally.
Yep.
Because it's just frustrating sometimes.
And it's healthier, though. As a human,
and it's way
as
healthier.
a human creature, this is much better for you.
Yeah. And you've been on a big health journey. You've lost a lot of weight. You look so healthy. And it's as you say, because even just walking back up to the car is a little workout. You don't get on flat. No. What I mean is, what I mean is people. No. What I mean is,
that car's way too shiny.
What I mean is, people. You get on I was at Chadstone yesterday picking up some camera equipment, and it's all lifts, flat floors, and elevators. You don't even climb stairs anymore.
Switch off.
And
that's what it's about.
you think, why can't I lose my belly? Well, when you actually add up how much physical labour you do in a day, how much you work out, it's nothing.
I tore my ankle recently, and a few months ago, whenever it was, and I could walk everywhere in the shops, in the house, like anywhere that's flat. As soon as you go onto my driveway, which is not very steep,
No.
couldn't walk. So we are,
So it's
to
challenging
your point,
physically.
yes,
Yeah.
everything about that's not even in the paddocks. Everything in modern life is built to be easy on your Achilles tendon, easy on your ATFL joint,
And
easy
to weaken them so that when you do start working on a farm, so maybe that's another good lesson is, as Romana's done, which you didn't in a funny sort of way. You went straight from office to farm, and so maybe it is a good idea to get out there, do some bushwalking, help out on farms, and start to condition your body a little bit. Your biodynamic farm in the Mornington Peninsula has volunteers come down every Friday.
That's right. And there's Remy's Patch, another plug for
Remy's Patch in the Mornington on the Mornington Peninsula.
Volunteers and woofers. Get on
Condition your body a little bit.
Well, just to have that experience, because once you've had the experience, then your mind is more likely to go, okay, I've come here now, I think I can see a little bit more of the way I could be going.
Yes.
Instead of having no idea.
Yeah, but physically...
It's a different story.
Physically, you do an hour's work the first time, you think you're going to die, and then after a couple of weeks, like, I did a whole day. And like you said, you did 14 hours yesterday.
Yeah.
With a, sore arm and a sore ankle. Yeah. So, it toughens you up. And toughening up doesn't mean punishing you. Toughening you up means makes you stronger. You might go through some suffering, makes you stronger. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time for this beautiful location. I'm going to take some drone shots to show everybody a little bit of the property. Very exciting.
Matt can get the pump going. It's going to flush it down the other way, I'm sure.
Fixing the pump. We're not going to stick around for the fixing of the pump because I suspect there'll be a lot of expletives and screaming. But
you're very calm, actually, even when you're under the pump. I've seen you a couple of times under the pump, but you're very measured.
Good.
I haven't seen you kicking any dog or bucket or anything.